Hi, everyone. We're right at 7, but I'm going to give it a couple more minutes just so everyone can get logged in. I know myself and one of the other commissioners will do some introductions is here, and I'll just make sure we have, I think Isabel is our other one. And I just finished eating, so I'm absorbing, and if I have anything in my teeth, I apologize. So checking the I'll give it to around 7:02. I'll do 7:03. I just want to make sure that I need to remember Isabel's last name. Sorry. I'm looking it up. Clements. Commissioner Clements is our other commissioner we're waiting for. Otherwise, I give it a little bit and then we'll get started because I want to value everyone's time. But we have quorum with the two of us, so we're fine. Commissioner Diamond, you've been successful getting into your ANC email? Like that hasn't been an issue? Okay.
Not an issue. I've been getting 20 to 30 emails a day. Lots of emails.
Okay. Yeah, I know some of our newer commissioners who started this term, there's been some hiccups about getting their email account set up right. So if you've been trying to contact a commissioner or having issues, there's been some hiccups with that. Like some of the accounts not fully transfer over correctly, and there was some hiccups.
No, mine went smoothly, which is good.
Good. Excellent. Yeah, I get a lot of district emails too. A lot of metro updates. It's just a lot. No, Sean, Catherine she's just joining us for tonight, but she's not on the PSE committee. Thanks. Okay, I think in the interest of time, and because I hadn't heard back from Commissioner Clements to confirm, we'll go ahead and get started for tonight. So welcome to the new ANC term for the Public Services and Environment Committee for ANC 1C. I think hopefully, John, if you want to drop the agenda in the chat, that would be great. I'm really excited to work with the new commissioners for this term and continue in this role for the Adams Morgan community. And in our agenda tonight, one of the first things we are going to talk about, we have a presentation from the Sierra Club to talk about the bottle bill that has been recently introduced with the DC Council. So really excited to learn more about that. And we'll also talk about a potential resolution that our ANC could put forward in support of that bill. And then sort of towards the tail end, sort of want to brainstorm and chat a little bit and give sort of a preview of some work that I'd like to see this committee do, particularly pertaining to rat control and rat abatement. So, some ideas here is like to start a task force so that we could work more directly with the Department of Health. But, more to come, but I sort of wanted to put those ideas and discussion out there tonight for anybody who'd like to send comments or questions on that. I really appreciate it. We might even need volunteers. Who knows? But so with that, I'm just looking in the chat. With that, I'm gonna do a quick introduction of the commissioners that are here. So again, I'm Linda Laughlin. I'm the commissioner for 1C06. It's sort of the eastern side of Adams Morgan and Lanier Heights. This is my second term. I hope my computer will not restart. Okay, it's my second term as an ANC. And I'm very excited to serve in this role again. I will now turn it over to Commissioner Diamond.
Hi, everybody. This is my first term as ANC Commissioner of 1C04, which is basically Biltmore Street, Adams Mill Road, and Calvert Street. And I'm excited to be working with Linda. My alleyway actually has had a pretty strong neighborhood involvement in rat abatement. So I look forward to continuing work on that and other environmental and public service issues.
Excellent. And just so so those of you who are online with us on Zoom, or if you're watching this through YouTube currently or later, I just wanted to indicate we have about 5 attendees that are online, and then the 3 panelists with the 2 commissioners here, as well as our wonderful Sean, who helps to manage our account and keep us going. So I think with that, if Joanna or Joanne, sorry, I think we're ready to hear more about the bottle bill. So if you put your hand up, Sean can then elevate you to be a panelist, and then that way you can share your desktop and other things. We see you on, yeah.
Okay. Great.
Excellent.
My name is Joanne Slade. I'm here for the Return, Refund, and Recycle Coalition for DC, which is a group of DC organizations supporting a mandatory bottle return bill for DC. And I'm going to try to see if I can get the Zoom here. Going to try to see if I can get my slideshow. And I don't see where it's going to come
think
on
it's
here.
the green, there's a green button with an arrow up that says share. I think that's, yeah. It's set up different than Teams or other platforms, I always notice.
Okay. And this is the one, I think. Do you have it there?
There we go. There it is. Yep, we see it.
Okay, great. As I said, I'm with the Return, Refund, and Recycle Coalition, which is a group of DC organizations supporting a mandatory bottle return bill in DC. Now, Councilmember Nadeau, your council member, has already introduced it. She introduced it in January 16th. I have the bill number there, but the important thing is that 11 council members were co-introducers of the bill, which is really pretty extraordinary because there are only 13 council members altogether. So it has widespread support. And it had got a lot of great publicity when it was introduced on the 16th. 8 ANCs have already passed resolutions supporting the bottle bill. So it also has wide support among the ANC, and we're hoping to get support from ANC 1C. Now, what is the problem? Well, I think this shows what the problem is. We have a real container problem here in DC, a beverage problem, and that's what the bottle bill addresses. This is a picture of the Anacostia River, and you can see, I mean, the bottles just collect there. I go out on the Anacostia a lot. I've done it for years, and it's terrible because when people throw bottles on the street, they end up in the Anacostia or in the Potomac because they go in the gutter and they eventually go down the drain and enter right into the river. We also have a problem because before that, even if they don't enter into the river, they are on the streets of DC. Now, I took these pictures on December 16th, just one morning, went out right up the street from your ANC on Mount Pleasant Street, you see all these bottles here that are on the street within a block area. So it is a real serious problem in DC. And what we did to understand the problem was we counted, if you can believe that, we counted over 4,000 bottles and cans at cleanup centers. And you see a picture of one of the cleanup centers as an example, to learn the extent of the problem. Just in DC alone, there are 337 million plastic bottles, they're called PET bottles if they're recyclable, sold in DC each year. Now that doesn't include the cans. Only 64 million of those are recycled. So it's less than 25% are actually recycled. What happens to the rest of them? They go on the street. They go in the garbage, but then they're incinerated. So that doesn't really solve the problem, or they're put in landfills. We need to get these bottles out of the garbage and recycled. What we found was that bottle bills cut litter between 69 and 84%. So if you look back at the previous slide, and you reduce it by 69%, you'll see how much litter will be reduced in DC by a bottle bill. How do we know that? Well, bottle bills have worked in 10 states where there have been bottle bills. The 10 bottle bill states account for 27% of the US population, but they provide over 50% of all the bottles that have been recycled. So these bottle bills really work in the 10 states that they are enacted. And in 1983, as a matter of fact, I was in New York when the bottle bills passed, and I can tell you, you couldn't put a can or a bottle down without somebody collecting it, because they get a refund for the bottles. They get in New York, it's 5 cents in 1983, but in DC, it will be 10 cents. So people really have an incentive to not throw their bottles in the garbage, but recycle them, whether it's glass bottles, plastic bottles, or aluminum bottles. Now, how do those bottle bills operate? They set a 10-cent deposit on the bottle. So you pay that 10-cent deposit extra when you buy the bottle, but it is immediately refunded when you return the bottle. So you don't have, if you return the bottle the next day, it will be refunded. If you return it in 10 days, it will be refunded. Beverage companies pay a handling fee to cover the costs of retailers to return these bottles. And since the bottle bills have been around for more than 20 years, they've worked out how to do that. What happens with unclaimed deposits? Well, a lot of people still, 15% possibly, won't return those bottles. When you're talking about millions of bottles of years per year, that means that there's a number of unclaimed deposit. Those are going to go to fund lead filters and other programs for DC residents to have cleaner water in DC. And they're also used, the bottle bill can be used for fundraising efforts very successfully. So as they're used by troops, by churches, by other supporters. I was at the state fair in September, and somebody from Maine walked up to me and said that they were having trouble with places to return the bottles because Maine does not have a big population, and they were having trouble finding locations to return the bottles. But then the schools decided to use the bottles for a fundraising drive, and it's been extremely successful. Kids can get their uniforms for band, they can get their sports outfit, whatever. And the bottle bills are very successful for returning the bottles and using fundraising. Now, what are the nuts and bolts of how the bottle bill will work? Well, if you look at the picture on the left, there's a reverse vending machine already at National Stadium. So you put your bottle in that reverse vending machine, but at National Stadium, you're not going to get any money back right now because there's no bottle bill. But once the bottle bill passes, you immediately get a refund. You get a ticket, you can immediately refund it at either a recycling center or a grocery store or another location in the district. And the bill specifically provides for recycling refund locations. Number one, they exempt the small grocery stores that can't really handle. It's a square footage exemption, but small grocery stores that couldn't really handle refunds will be exempted. And there's a special provision in the bottle bill to make sure that there are refund centers in every ward in the city. So that will be enforced. How does a bottle bill work for DC? Number one, it cuts litter. It'll reduce the 75% of bottles and cans that are either trashed, burned, or buried right now. It will promote environmental justice because the container litter in wards 5, 7, and 8 is along the Anacostia River, and it will reduce the amount of trash in that river, in addition to the Potomac River, by 5 times. It's good for the climate, and it creates green jobs for DC residents. How does it do that? People get involved in, again, you can use New York as an example, Michigan, Maine. People return the bottles that other people don't maybe want to return. They don't want to bother. Other people, they call them canners, pick up the bottles, return them. And also there's the garbage companies can collect the bottles and actually make more money returning in bulk those bottles than the dirty bottles that they're actually that they have to collect in the garbage right now. So it's a way for people to make money while also cleaning the environment. We talked about the fundraising efforts that are used. There's all kinds of fundraising efforts that are used all over the country to have those bottles successfully returned and help other people. And I'd also like to note the district used to have a deposit return program. Again, I talked to people in the city, and many other people who have supported the bottle bill have had people come up to them and say, when I was a kid, I used to collect bottles because of the deposit return in DC. But then, of course, it stopped because it was cheaper for companies to make plastic no return bottles than use the deposit bottles that they used to have. But deposit return program used to be in DC, and it can work again. And we strongly feel that it will really be a game changer for the litter in DC. I have some resources here, the website for anybody who wants it, for Senate Councilmember Nadeau's bill, and in addition, the council's legislative website and other websites that show the statistics about how bottle bills will help the District of Columbia and have helped everybody, every state that has enacted it. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so I threw in the chat, and I'll say here, if anybody who's called in from the public has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, or you can also put it in the Q&A on the Zoom, and we'll make sure to read that. And thank you, Sean, for putting the link to the bill that was introduced in the council. That is a link. As we wait for that, I'll start with a couple questions.
Sure.
So I was wondering about the plan for, so will there be, is there any, so the bill it already has in their plan to create redemption centers or to install these, like those machines that you were showing in your slides to put those
Right.
in various different places in the district? Would they be focusing, putting them on like in grocery stores or in parks? Like what is the sort of sense on that?
They definitely would be in grocery stores, but in Ward 7 and 8, there aren't a lot of grocery stores, so
Right.
they're going to have them in other places. And the bill would not be effective, or in terms of, it's not like the bill passes and the next day people are going to be returning bottles
Right.
because they have to coordinate with the bottling companies. So
Okay.
it'll be a 2-year process, and during that time, a nonprofit is set up to monitor, to enact the bill and make sure that there are redemption centers all over the city. The nonprofit will be, I think the money for the nonprofit will be collected from the unclaimed deposits.
Okay.
So that will be part of how that's supported. And also, there should be very little DC council or DC government money involved. But whatever it is, whatever amount is involved, the DC can get reimbursed again through the nonprofit by billing the nonprofit.
Okay. I lost the second question in my head. Oh, so would people be, let's say like this gets passed and then there's that lag until redemption sites are set up or places to go redeem your can. Would the can or bottle itself need to have the, like, I know when you get a can, you can see on it. Would it be
Right.
in order to get the deposit money back, does it need to have the DC? Does DC also need to be in that list? Or if people bring in older cans that they've been collecting in their home for however long?
No, they can't bring in cans from other states. And one of the
Okay.
advantages to the reverse vending machines is that you will be able to read where that, the plan is to have you be able to read where that can or bottle was sold. And
Okay.
so
So like
that's
in
part of the reason
Virginia,
it takes 2 years to
okay.
process all the mechanics of what needs to be done to enact the bottle bill. It will probably say, I assume it will say on it, DC will be included with all those other states that are on there right now.
Okay. Okay. Um, and then, well, I'll wait on this other question. I want to make sure. I would like to turn it if Commissioner Diamond has any questions or comments.
Yes, I have a question. I don't understand the unclaimed deposit. So say I have a bunch of bottles of, plastic water bottles. How does that become it? And I take it back, I will get the deposit. So if a bottle is returned, how can there be an unclaimed deposit?
The bottles that are returned are not unclaimed, but statistically, about 15% of the people do not return the bottles. So that's what I'm talking about with unclaimed deposits. So the 85% of people who return, or the 85% of bottles that are returned, everybody gets their deposit back. But, there's going to be the nonprofit will have the all of the deposit money, right? And they or track of the
Oh, I see.
deposit money.
Okay.
They don't have the deposit money, but they have track of it. And so there are going to be people who are just not going to bother to return their bottles. Maybe they'll throw it in their regular recycling, or maybe they'll throw it in the regular garbage. So that's 15%. When you multiply it by millions of bottles, that's a considerable amount, even though it's a big improvement over what, occurred before. And that's why it can be used for, lead paint education and
But those bottles could be like tossed on the sidewalk and those bottles could still end up in the river, correct?
Right. And what the experience
Okay,
is in other states is that when a bottle, if a bottle is tossed on the street, somebody's going to pick it up. A canner's going to pick it up. So
I
I
see.
don't think those are going to be in the 15%. I think the 15% is people are, at home and just toss it in the garbage.
I see. All right, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I think
Mhm.
it was very thorough, and most of my questions were answered by the presentation.
Great.
Yeah. And I guess so that would mean if you get city pickup for recycling, if you put your cans and bottles in there, then you won't get a deposit back because you're electing to put it
Exactly.
in the city system. So in order to get that deposit, you would need to go to a redemption center.
Right.
Um,
Either a grocery store or, some other location.
okay.
And if you buy the bottles or cans from Maryland rather than DC, you just put them in the regular recycling. Because, you will not have paid the deposit, so you can't.
Oh, so if you buy a can of soda in Maryland, yeah, you
Mhm.
wouldn't pay a deposit, even though on the can it would have the stamp of the states you can get the deposit in, but you wouldn't.
You can,
Yeah.
you can get it if you buy it in DC.
Okay.
So in
But if
other
you buy
words,
it in Maryland, bring
you're
it
not,
back into DC and try to get a redemption, you can't, which that makes sense. I think this
yeah,
would take a lot of education if it
yeah,
passes.
because you're not paying that deposit fee. Now, Maryland
Yeah.
also has a bill that they're trying to get passed this year. So maybe they'll
Okay.
both be passed and then it won't be,
Right.
such
I
an
feel like
issue.
I know there was a Seinfeld episode on this. Like I'm trying so I'm like, I know they had some kind of scheme to do this and that was part of it. So yeah. Sorry. I do think of that episode. So um the one question I was going to ask is that so you said that the bill has like a lot of support, like a lot of co-sponsors from the council, which is really great. But I always want to think like what are the concerns about the bill like that have been raised? Like is it from particular the beverage companies or beverage like is there like I guess I'm just curious to sort of see what's the opposite side thinking on this or what are their concerns?
Right, the beverage companies don't want it. They're in New York, they're trying to raise it from 5 cents to 10 cents, and the
Mhm.
Pepsi put uh, a, a little tag on every single beverage that they were selling in New York saying, this is going to double the price of your beverage. Now,
I
that doesn't
see.
make any sense because, it's only a deposit that's being increased. It's not the price of the, you know,
Right,
beverage.
right.
I mean, why would it double the price of the beverage? But they don't want to bother with it. They don't want, they think it might cut into their profits. And there have been, and it's on the website for the 3RC Coalition, studies, I think it was in Massachusetts was done, and it didn't affect the sale of beverages because people get the money back. People who are concerned about the money.
Right. Is there concern about like that areas with these redemption centers, like if they'll get overwhelmed or
I'm
like
sorry, if it'll what?
if they're get will it be too successful? Would they get overwhelmed? Or like I was in Portland, Oregon last summer and like the Target in downtown Portland, its primary function seemed to be a redemption center and it seemed to overwhelm that business a bit. And I didn't know. I guess that's great to have that much success, but I could see that being a concern that it could overwhelm smaller businesses where everyone's only coming in to do returns of bottles and cans. It could put a lot of pressure on a small business if there's a lot of people in their store.
Right. Well, I mean, Target obviously isn't a small business, so it wouldn't
Yeah.
be exempted, but for small, mom and pop grocery stores, it is a problem, and that's why she exempted it.
Okay.
Also, the beer breweries, small, breweries in DC
Oh,
would also
okay.
be exempted.
Okay.
So, they're gonna have to, I guess, to a certain extent, work it out. I wasn't familiar with anybody, a target being overwhelmed, but they're just gonna, I can't, they're gonna have to figure out where people are going and if they need extra redemption centers or not.
Okay. Yeah, I do. And that you were very right about it does sort of create sort of a new little economy because yeah, if we left a can out in Portland, it was gone, picked up immediately. And I also witnessed that in Berlin. Berlin, Germany has like a deposit program too, and it's very active. And people, if you're about to go put something in recycling, some people will be like, "Oh no, I'll take it." So it's very active there. So I think it would be really great to bring to DC, the nation's capital, and certainly help us. It's it's an additional action that we can do to help get our rivers clean. So yeah.
And Councilmember Nadeau specifically noted that the largest amount of trash, I think by weight, and I'd have to look back on her website again, but is, bottles and cans in DC, in the river. And I can certainly attest to that because, like I said, I've, not swam, believe me, but kayaked and been on the river and in the Anacostia or been on the shore, and it's just disgusting. Now, I was also, and for anybody who's lived in DC for any kind of period of time, when we passed the plastic bag fee, that was a real game changer for DC. You used to see plastic bags all over the place, but once the bag fee passed, and that's only a nickel, you just don't see those plastic bags like you used to. So I think that's going to be even more pronounced with the cans and bottles.
I think that's all the questions I
Is
had.
it
Oh, go ahead, please. Oh, you froze, Maria Elise. Sorry.
yeah, I've so is this all yeah.
You froze a bit.
Um, just a question, is this all containers and is it 10 cents? So as well as a 12-ounce soda can, those are equally going to be a 10-cent deposit?
Yes, it's for individual beverage containers. I don't know off the top of my head what
Did
the
you get that question?
size limit is, but any one that's considered an individual, so whether it's a 12 or 18 ounce, it's still going to be 6 ounce. It's going to be the same. Now, milk is exempted. I forget, baby formula is exempted, and there's medicine's exempted.
Okay.
And, I don't know what the size limit is. I just forget, sort of. But
Okay.
it's intended for individual use. It's not for
I
like
got
a gallon bottle. That's not going to be covered.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because that's probably the most common beverage item purchased. So, and yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know if anybody who's online has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the Q&A. Joanne, is it okay if we put the slides you have, if we share them with our constituents and others, is that okay?
Yeah, I
Or we
think,
can direct them to like a website if they're posted somewhere. We can always do that too.
yeah, and I think the best one would be the resources and data because that has the
Okay.
bottle bill information. So I can email you that. Is
Okay.
that
Yeah,
okay?
and then we can post it in our agenda with a link or and also I'll send it around to all the commissioners in 1C so that they can share with other individuals.
Yeah, that'll take me a minute to figure out how to do that.
Yeah,
but
you don't it's after the meeting. It's fine. No worries. No rush on that. Well, like I said, I don't see anybody up with questions or anything, but this was really helpful. And then do you know, did both at large, who are the commissioners who have not co-signed.
co-introduced.
Yeah.
Um,
Or council, yeah,
I
councilman.
just, I'm just, McDuffie is one,
Yeah. Okay.
and Treyon White is the other one.
Okay.
So
So,
they were actually not just co-sponsors, the 11 people, they were co-introducers. So that's, you know, a
okay.
bigger deal really
Okay.
than co-sponsoring. Yeah. I'm not saying that they're, you know, cemented, they're glued to their position, but
Yeah.
it is a bigger commitment than just co-sponsoring.
Okay. That is helpful to know.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I think with that, like, I think you're welcome to stay on for the rest of the meeting because we're going to move on to talking about the resolution that I'm going to put forth for us to consider. Um, and just as I'm trying to get better about explaining the procedural stuff that happens. So if we as a committee and ANCs, we can review and present resolutions, discuss them, edit them as needed, take public feedback, and then once that part is done, then we as a committee will vote on if we want to support it. And then if that happens, if we do decide to support it as a committee, then we forward it on to our full ANC meeting, and that our ANC 1C meets the first Wednesday of every month. So then we would send the resolution to our full ANC. If it passes a committee, it doesn't necessarily need it gets voted on at the full ANC, but we don't have to reintroduce it or anything. So that would be sort of the process that we do for this.
Okay.
And
So it would still, even if your committee votes to approve it, it would still need to go through the full ANC.
yeah, because then once it passes through our full ANC, then we put it on sort of formalized letterhead and then send it up
Okay.
as a recommendation. And similar to the other ANCs that you said have already passed it, you know, for full transparency, I took a lot of that same language because it was a good resolution as it was written, but modified it a bit with, you know, Ward 1 and 1C to indicate that. But I, you know, welcome comments if there's something specific that we should add to it of how this would benefit or help us as Ward 1 residents support a citywide initiative, then that's language we can add as well.
Okay, great. And if you have any questions for me, you know, if it does go to the full ANC, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer at that time also.
Okay. So with that, we'll move on to discussing that. So we'll demote you, so you're not a panelist anymore.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
you're welcome to stay in the meeting. We encourage that.
Okay.
But thank you very much. This was really
Thank
helpful.
you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. And I meant to, when we started up the meeting, I was going to show more just for other, let me go back to Zoom. I'm just going to share our website because I know our Commissioner Wood, our chair as well, he did a lot of work to update our website. It's up and running again. It has been for a few weeks or more than a few weeks now. But just if you have been familiar to come to these meetings, just a couple things to point out. Like, so we did put in like the sort of built-in calendar thing on the side. And if you click on the date itself, it'll pull up the link to the Google Drive where we have our agenda, and then it'll have the Zoom link down below it. It's a little hidden. You don't see it at first, but it is like if you click on it, then it'll pull up those certain things. And like it looks like we haven't quite gets a little stuck. And that was just for the month of January. So if we go to February, you see that like our full ANC meeting with all the commissioners would be on Wednesday, the 5th. And if you click on that, then you'll see those similar links and stuff. So like if you're wondering about the agenda or trying to figure out where the Zoom link is, you just need to sort of click on that again and it'll pull it up. And typically we do try to put the Zoom link on the agenda as well, in case that's the only format you have. So I just want to point that out because sometimes I forget that's a new function of how we've set up the calendar, but I think it's a lot easier than what we've had before. And I know Commissioner Wood is doing updates to add bios and pictures for the rest of our commissioners. So we're getting up to speed on this. But certainly if you have any questions or comments of improvements or better communication we can do via our website, please let us know, because we put a lot of work into it. It's a good resource to have. And we know, you know, it's hard to always share information in a timely basis, but you can get to this there. And it's also where you can find past meetings. So the Zoom meetings get posted there, like the recordings that are on YouTube get posted there. So if you miss a meeting or want to catch up on something, we do sort of have that library of past meetings that you can go back to. Okay, so with that, I was gonna then, for the agenda, I wanted to introduce, like I said, about the resolution. Oh, sorry. Here we go. So used to using Teams to get used to this. So as it is also linked in the agenda, but I wanted to recommend and get comment about a resolution to support what we sort of terminology is using at the bottle bill that Councilmember Naito did already introduce. And I think it would be a really big step forward for the district to participate in this program and offer a new opportunity for people to learn about recycling and also benefit from it a bit financially in whatever capacity that they are collecting and returning cans in. So like I said, this bill is very similar to what other ANCs have passed. I know, I think the majority of ANCs that have passed it so far are in Ward 5. To my knowledge, in Ward 3, 5 and 3. To my knowledge, I do not believe any other ANCs in Ward 1 have passed a resolution in support yet, but I think it's being considered. So with that, I didn't know if there are any comments or any additions that we should make to it, so I open the floor to that. And I don't know if Commissioner Diamond, if you had any additions or comments for it. And if I can make it bigger, sorry. Commissioner Diamond, did you have any comments that you wanted to add about the?
No, it's all good. It looks all good to me. And let me just confess, I keep getting these messages on my computer that says my connection is unstable.
Oh.
Weird. I'm in a different place in my house, and I think I'm far away from computer
From
signals.
your wife.
It
might help if you turn your camera off. It might lessen the
load. Yeah. And
yeah.
also I'm getting that message that my computer needs to restart, which I don't
I
want to
got that too. Okay,
I know. But yeah, I looked at the explanation before, and I think this is a really great thing for the district to do. I'm curious about what the people that are on the meeting think, because I do think this requires a shift in consumer behavior. And I think it's a good idea, but I'm curious about how just the typical person who's not super gung-ho on environmental issues, it's just like a regular person who goes to the store and gets a bottle of something, what their feeling on it is. But I think taking a leadership role as the environmental committee, this would be a good resolution to pass.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think it's sort of in very broad terms, but like requesting that the council hold hearings to get additional insight from residents and stakeholders. I think that's like with any program we pass in the district, community engagement and education is really important.
Mhm.
So, like, and that's sort of like this last clause here for the resolve, like that's sort of getting at sort of that component you're talking about, because it would be a shift in behavior. And I do think there will be confusion between, if you buy something in Maryland or Virginia, it doesn't mean that you can get a deposit back for it in DC. It will be a little confusing. And I do hope Maryland passes it too, because then that would really help with that confusion. But I think we can, if we do pass this tonight, and then within the full ANC, stress that more with our council member and with the other council members that have supported this bill.
Yeah, and I think in our in Adams Morgan, there are some obvious places where those vending machines could be placed. And I'm not sure in other wards how that would go, but there are, we have ample grocery stores, we have plaza space, we have obvious places for that. So I think that would be successful here, because I do think it's got to be visible and easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think if we want. And we can ask our fellow commissioners if there's, like, we have some pretty good people who are very good with the legal language. You can always put up. But so I'm going to put forward, I'm going to I'd like to put up to a vote if we would like, as the PSE committee, if we'd like to pass this resolution. So I'm going to put that up for vote, and I think I need to get a second.
So I'll second.
Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. It passes. The PSE committee with 2 votes, 1 absent with our Commissioner Clements out, but we had the quorum to pass for tonight. So we will I will send this on up to the full committee for their review to look at, and for any additional comments. And certainly members of the public, other people, like, feel free to also, if you think of something or something that could help strengthen this, we encourage that as well. Okay, so I think, how do I, stop share. Excellent. Okay, the other item we had on the agenda tonight, and this is really more just a start of a brainstorming a little bit and exploratory, is one thing that I've been very passionate about, and I know a number of our other commissioners in 1C and Ward 1 are very passionate about, is how we can do better rat control and rat abatement. And we know Ward 1, and particularly Adams Morgan, can sort of be, well, I don't know, ground zero for it, because we just have a lot of business establishments. There's just a lot of food out there that is easy for our rat population to get to. I also, over the summer, and I encourage any commissioner as well as the members of the public, because it's free, the Department of Health, about every year, every other year, depending on their funding, they put on a rat, I called it rat camp. They had a more official name for it, but they do a rat education program where they bring in a guest speaker who does sort of rat control and comes in and talks about different methods that have worked, but also just some basic, like, biology about how rats operate and why they are so successful in sort of surviving in urban environments. So I highly recommend, if you see that come up, you can, any resident can sign up for it. It is a free class that is set up by the District of Columbia through the Department of Health. So that particular class gave me a lot of ideas and a lot of motivation about what we could do within our own community, and just maybe starting with 1C06 to sort of tackle some of those problems. And one idea I had was that we could start sort of a task force that would include both commissioners from 1C, but also members of the public who would like to sort of help with brainstorming, as well as one thought I had was doing some data collection, and sort of mapping where our hotspots are, but also mapping and getting information down about where public trash cans are, or where we see particular places of food where there's a lot of different resources that are available for rats. And that purely comes from my background as a demographer and sociologist. Like, data is really important. And the thing I learned from that rat camp is that we have a lot of data out there about certain things. We just don't have it all in one place to sort of look at it more holistically to help us make decisions, or to recommend because as commission we can make recommendations and advise. So we need sort of better data to sort of help advise and make recommendations to our elected officials, but also our various different departments. So I wanted to just sort of put that idea out there that we're thinking about it. I had hoped to have a bigger platform and things to present for our first meeting in January, but we wanted to do the bottle bill information first. So look out for it for our next meeting at the end of February, where I'm going to work with our other PSE members and others to sort of put together a larger plan. So I wanted to put that sort of out there. I know for Commissioner Diamond, she's already expressed a lot of interest, and I encourage, like, if you have any thoughts or questions to ask, I love to hear that.
Yeah, I think your ideas are great, and I think data collection is good. And we, in my shared alley with Calvert Street, we've done a lot of work, and it's an ongoing struggle. And I think getting residents on board, because it has to be, whole blocks, because if everyone's not on board with, making sure that your trash can is closed and the trash is inside the trash, the rats just move from one property to another. And I think getting the data and seeing where the rats are and where the burrows are, I think that's good. But it will take, I think, a community effort. It's one or two people can't do this alone.
Yeah. And I think something that we as an ANC, and as we build sort of a task force around it, is the complications, and this is not just a DC issue, but like in DC, if you are like a single family home, you can contact Department of Health through their rat abatement, and they can send out someone to like put like a powder in a den and sort of, and then that powder gets on their rat, and it's like it is a poison that slowly gets in their blood. But if you live in a large apartment building or a co-op building, then that is not a city service that's necessarily available to you. You have to go through your management company for your property. And so there's a bit of a disconnect. So like, I live on Lanier Street in a co-op building. So we're on one end, but then the rest of the street are row homes. So if the row homes are having the rat problem, they're going to come over to us too. And so there's a disconnect between how we are working together as neighbors to sort of work on that issue, because we have to go through different pathways to get sort of different services for that. And so I think hopefully as a task force, we can work on improving that communication, but also make recommendations to our council members that, maybe it's really time to reconsider like how we do these city services and expand it to not just single family homes, but to different properties. Or what are the ways that, do other agencies, can they do a fine or other things? Because I do know that is a big problem. And we know in Adams Morgan, we have a diversity of housing types. So like I said, some blocks have a few row homes and then some apartment buildings. It's just a mix. And so it can make it a big challenge. So
yeah, thank you for that.
Go ahead.
Clarification. Thank you for that clarification. I had no idea. And yeah, it seems like that's an unusual split of city services, and definitely people need to be able to work together and have the same level of service in a shared block or shared alley.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do the work I need to do to put together some of that
Okay.
proposal work and share within the PSE committee. And like I said, like I think there's a lot of different ways we can do it. Like we'll sit up once a month, we'll sit at like Potter's house in the cafe and people could come talk to us about rats, you know? So I know we're all very passionate about it in our own way, maybe in more sadistic ways, I don't know. But I think as if we just sort of put our heads together, because we're always going to live with rats. Like, let's just be clear, they'll always be here. But we can do things to mitigate their population, and it doesn't have to be all through poison. It can be just by reducing food sources. And so I think that is a better approach that's probably more sustainable. But wanted to throw that out there, more to come. So PSE meetings for, a lot of our time might just be about rats. So, but I think it's a good goal for us to focus on, and I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, I thank everyone. I know we're at the end of January, but still Happy New Year. Hope everyone is doing well. And like I said, our next full ANC meeting is next Wednesday. We always encourage people to join. We are still only doing our meetings right now through Zoom, just for more accessibility. But we are also, as a commission, working more to do more informal meetings where you can come and chat with us. And if you have ideas on that, I encourage you to share those with us. All right. With that, I wish everyone a good night.
All right. Thank you. Good night.